Hello, Sharpie Boss here, and today I'll be reading Chapter 5 of Slender by the Wizard of Words. You can find the 6,000 word chapter in the description if you would like to read along. If you are new to this story, please go back and listen to it from the beginning. Chapter 5, Macrotus. Scootaloo, Princess Luna spoke with an air of surprise. I wasn't aware that you were in this class. Do tell me, what is it that little Pip did? All eyes in the class turned to the orange foal. Any eagerness she had withered and fell under their oppressive gazes.
Well,
she trailed off.
I know something, but I promised him I wouldn't tell anybody, and, he was really worried about it too.
The hard gazes had yet to soften. Scootaloo found the ground a sight for sore eyes. A still silence filled the classroom as the filly stopped speaking. It took all of a moment for Luna to realize the situation she had placed the young Pegasus in. A sigh of disappointment left her lips before she turned back towards the teacher of the class. Her own eyes focused on Scootaloo as well. Cheerly, the Dark Princess began. The teacher was looking back at the princess before the first syllable had ended. It is our request for Scootaloo to join me and my companions outside to speak. Does this conflict with you? Oh, no. The pink earth pony quickly denied, forehooves shaking off the comment as if it was poison. Please, by all means, speak to her outside. Scootaloo. The filly's eyes begrudgingly left the floor to look up at her teacher. Can you talk with the princess outside? I'm sure that will make you feel more comfortable. It wasn't hard to see the filly shift in her seat. Do not fear, Scootaloo. Princess Luna spoke again. There are simply a few questions I must ask that I believe you can answer. The young Twilight Sparkle and Rainbow Dash outside are here to help as... She didn't have time to finish her sentence. As soon as the name of the prismatic Pegasus was mentioned, Scootaloo was out the door in a puff of smoke. Luna stood dumbfounded at the front of the classroom, holding back the urge to cough.
Rainbow Dash!
The sound of her name being shouted was all the heads up the Pegasus had before being plowed by a rather powerful pony. She felt the air leave her lungs as her legs lost balance, sending her to the ground. She heard a giggle from above her. It didn't take her long to know exactly who had taken claim to pouncing on her.
Hey there, Scoots.
Dash spoke affectionately to the younger Pegasus. She raised a forehoof to ruffle the purple mane of her young fan. The filly squealed in delight.
So how's it hanging? I was just bored to tears in class when Princess Luna came in.
She almost absently noted.
I mean, it's hard to even act bored when one of the princesses is speaking to you, but when she said that you were helping her, I was just so excited that I had to run out to see you. Well, duh, she began. Who else do you think the Princess of the Night would trust with serious assignments, other than the most awesome Pegasus in Equestria? Because it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that you spoke with Rumble and that you were the pupil of her sister? Yeah, nothing. For just a moment, Dash forgot the importance of breathing. Her head quickly whipped to see Twilight Sparkle, hiding a smile beneath a raised hoof. Her coy lavender eyes were nearly sparkling with her namesake. Dash could only raise her brows as she lowered her lids. Oh, so Luna was looking for you? The Pegasus admitted, gently moving the filly off of her. She stood to her tallest next to the unicorn. You saying that I'm not good enough to help the princess? Dash kept her face straight as an arrow and still as windless air. The drop in Twilight's features from confidence to worry was nothing short of hilarious. Dash felt the muscles in her face itching to split into a cocky grin. She held herself strong. What? No, of course not, Rainbow, no! Twilight mumbled and shot out in a frantic tone. I was just trying to use wordplay in a hysteric manner, similar to how you and Pinky interact. It sounded better in my head, using ironic tones while stating factual events that occurred in the past. Her eyes darted left and right, searching for the right words to say. Any control that Dash had to hold her lips steady slowly left. That, Scoots, she began to the younger Pegasus, is how you scramble an egghead. Scootaloo fell to the ground in a fit of laughter. Dash wasn't far behind. Her stomach clenched hard as she rolled back and forth across the ground, holding her hooves over her underside in a vain attempt to relieve the pressure. For every breath she took in, her body forced out on chopped breaths of giggles, chuckles, and resounding laughs. Scootaloo did much the same, flailing her legs in the likes of a tortoise stuck on its back. That was mean, Dash. Twilight's voice was barely heard over the mirthful laughter of the two Pegasi. The unicorn sighed as she kicked the ground. I thought I seriously offended you. Dash turned back over on her forelegs.
taking and releasing deep breaths of air. The smile that was draped over her face was nearly painful.
Come on, Twy.
Dash spoke over fitful laughs, her breathing doing little but softening her volume.
It was just a little fun.
That's what I thought I was doing, but then you sounded like I had insulted you, unintentionally, obviously, but still.
Yeah, after you totally tried to do the same thing to me.
Her words were met with a pout from the unicorn. Dash hadn't dropped her smile yet. Scootaloo hadn't stopped laughing yet.
I just turned your little wordplay back on you. That's like the whole point of being clever in a conversation. What, did you think I was just gonna say something uncool and let you get off scot-free?
Twilight turned from pursing her lips out to slightly nibbling on it, her eyes twisting away from the prismatic Pegasus. Dash put on a scoreboard up in her mind. Rainbow equals 1, Twilight 0.
So?
The unicorn mumbled and stuttered out. It was a bit more than obvious she was thinking as she spoke, something the Pegasus had come to the conclusion was best left to ignore. Then again, she wasn't rambling about a new spell or duplication trick. This was her trying to one-up the most awesome Pegasus in Equestria. That couldn't happen.
So?
Dash trailed off for Twilight, causing the unicorn to look back up at her. Her eyes went wide for just a moment, an expression Dash could say was like catching Spike misorganized the books in the library. But then her expression turned stern, and if possible, a bit cocky, with the way her lips were pulled to one side. Rainbow beat back the idea of flaring her wings. So then I don't have a chance at beating you in anything? Dash couldn't have worn a more self-satisfying expression if she tried, mainly because she was trying to.
Nope, no way,
she agreed adamantly.
Sorry, Egghead, you're smart and all, but you aren't gonna beat me. I mean, I am the most awesome Pegasus in all of Equestria.
No pony can possibly beat you? Rainbow let her face turn from confident to incredulous. A snort of air left her muzzle before she responded.
Of course. I did smoke the competition in the best young flyers, and I can pull off a sonic rainboom on command. Let's not forget I'm the only pony who can keep up with Pinkie Pie in a sugar rush.
Something shined in Twilight's eyes. Not even the princesses? Before even uttering a word, Dash blew a stray strand of green out of her eyes, striking a pose of the hoof to her chest, wings flared and head held high.
You kiddin'? I bet I can fly circles around Celestia, and I haven't even seen Princess Luna flap those wings of hers. Give us a race and I'll bet I'll be able to leave them eating my dust.
I will do well to remember that, Rainbow Dash. Dash's wings hit the ground in shock. Her ears folded back against her head, eyes wider than before with a mouth turned 180 degrees. Her forehoof, once pressed against her chest, fell limply to the dirt below, unable to process the idea of putting weight on it. During all of this, only one thought pushed through her head.
Oh, crud.
Rainbow swallowed a ball of water in her mouth, taking a deep breath to follow it. Her fur stood on end as a cold chill ran through her. She only just realized then that Scootaloo wasn't laughing anymore either. Dash let her eyes flicker over the orange-coated Pegasus. The filly was still on the ground, tiny wings spread and back on the dirt, but her eyes were looking up and backwards, gazing at something behind Rainbow Dash's back. Rainbow swallowed again, this time on nothing. Hesitantly, she turned her head, craning her neck to see the figure just behind her. It was no mystery what her pink eyes fell on. Rainbow won, Twilight won.
Yo, princess!
Dash stuttered uselessly under the cool gaze of the dark monarch. She had a smile on her lips that wouldn't have been able to fool a foal. Yo, Rainbow Dash. Luna replied in kind, her voice as cold as the cyan Pegasus felt. Dash swallowed again, which was odd to her, as her mouth was strangely dry.
Listen, your Majesty Luna, no, Princess Luna, yeah,
The Pegasus stammered, uselessly, as she turned to the monarch, already lowering herself to the ground.
That was all just me doing,
Please. Princess Luna spoke at Dash's pause. Do tell what you were doing. The Pegasus was close to drawing blood with the strength of her teeth biting her lips.
It was...
Her pink eyes looked everywhere they could, but at the dark alicorn in front of her. For a quick moment, she turned her head back to Twilight, looking desperately at the mare. The unicorn looked back into Dash's gaze, raised a hoof to her chest, and cocked a knowing grin. Rainbow had never felt the need to throttle some pony more than at that moment. On a shaking breath, she turned back to Luna.
I was just running my mouth off, Your Highness.
She spoke honestly.
I like the idea of being the fastest, you know, the best, first place, and all the big words like that are synonyms for that.
The giggle from Twilight was anything but inaudible.
It's what I do, a lot, constantly, like right now, but I mean nothing to insult you. You're awesome, way awesome.
More awesome than you? The question earned a very wide gaze from Dash. Any more, and her eyes would have been given room to roll from their sockets. The chances of her fainting were also incredibly high, as her inability to breathe seemed to extend for a long period of time. The question hanging in the air. That was until Dash's pink eyes, wide enough to nearly see behind her, caught sight of the oddest thing. Princess Luna was smiling.
Wait a second.
Dash began carefully. Her hoof rose from the ground, pointing at the monarch, twisting around her frame to aim at Twilight, and then back at Luna again. All the while she kept a mortified face.
Did you two just prank me?
Laughter was the answer she received. A low sigh left the Pegasus's lips as her features fell. Wide eyes squinted, open jaw into a frown, and brows knitted together. Her pink eyes looked to see Twilight in a position scarcely different than her own only a few minutes prior, holding her hooves to her underframe as laughter spilled out from her lips with barely or contained volume. Her eyes were shut as the bliss overtook her. Scootaloo had only resumed doing what she had done before. Even Princess Luna, mighty and powerful monarch of Equestria, had a hoof to her lips as a distinct chuckle left her. Dash's sigh turned into a groan. She rolled her head to the sky and back to the ground, taking a breath of air as she did so.
Alright, fine. You got me. Happy?
The laughter quelled little with her words. Extremely so, Luna admitted with a fitting smile still hung from her lips. The cold eyes from before were now gazing at her with an almost mirthful warmth. It was the most confusing look Dash had ever received from some pony, aside from the fluttering eyes Twilight had given her some months back. Yeah, Twilight stuttered out between her fitful laughs, eyes still screwed shut with everything but pain. You... Whatever her words were, they were drowned out by the rising cacophony of her delight. Dash sighed at the sight and sound. It was hard to stay mad at a mare like her, especially for doing something she, herself, always did.
Alright, calm down.
Dash tried fruitlessly with the unicorn and Pegasus Foal. Her words did little more than earn eye contact from the two before they broke out into another fit of laughter. Rainbow gave another curt sigh as her head hung itself. That was just before an idea popped into her mind. For once, it wasn't an idea she was keen on doing.
Hey girls, we seriously need to focus now.
The rumble of laughter died only in volume.
Seriously, we need to start looking for Pip again.
That did it. Like telling her Celestia was planning a surprise visit, Twilight ceased her laughter with a long breath of air, letting her eyes widen as far as her chest grew. She was still like that for a moment. Look, wide-eyed and guilty up at the Pegasus. Slowly, she rolled onto her side before pushing herself up onto her four hooves. Dash gave a quick look towards Luna, seeing her expression fall back again from the amused grin and gleam to a cold gaze of seriousness. She felt the chill of the princess's night creep over her fur, under those hard eyes. But just as Dash was building the nerve to look away, the princess let out a sigh of her own, letting her gaze return to the ground. Yes, you are right, Rainbow Dash, the dark alicorn confessed. Now is not the time for idle chatter or amusements. Young Pipsqueak needs us.
What do you mean he needs you? Isn't he just out sick?
3 pairs of eyes turned to the youngest of the group. The orange filly immediately shied away from their collective gaze, lowering herself to the ground.
Did I just say something wrong? No.
Dash spoke quickly, trotting over to the younger Pegasus.
Sorry, Scoots, that's not it at all. We were just... I don't know the word for it.
The pleading look to Twilight was something the mare didn't miss. Unprepared for it, the unicorn offered. Dash nodded in agreement, though Twilight spoke on. Scootaloo, there is something important we have to tell you, but you can't tell any pony else.
A secret?
The filly guessed enthusiastically, her tail rising into the air as a smile slowly split across her face. It only made the pair of mares bite their lips. Yes, Scootaloo, a secret indeed. Princess Luna spoke commandingly as she moved towards the young filly. Dash backed away respectfully. We carry a grave secret of unimaginable importance. Very few know about it, but we have decided that we can trust you with it.
How much of that is true?
Dash whispered quietly to the unicorn beside her. Dash answered back just as softly.
Less than a third. Is Equestria in danger?
Scootaloo asked the dark alicorn. Even to Rainbow, the filly looked a little bit too happy when asking that kind of question. To her credit, the monarch didn't pay it any mind. Nay, Scootaloo, she continued. We carry news of Pip that few others know. She paused as the Pegasus foal looked up at her with beaming eyes, begging for more. Luna did not disappoint. He is in far more danger than any illness alone can cause. Over the storm of the night past, he was stolen from his home, taken by a pony we do not know. However, there are many clues that we have gathered, and ideas that need to be tested.
And you think I can help?
You are as intelligent as your idol. Luna complimented Scootaloo before she continued. Yes, indeed. You claim to know something Pip has done, something that may lead us to the trail of his captor. The word was clearly chosen carefully. The young foal nodded as the princess spoke. We believe that, with your aid, finding Pip safe and sound is near guaranteed.
But...
The foal began quietly, her head turning away from the monarch's intimidating gaze.
I promised him that I wouldn't tell.
And promises are meant to be kept, yes. Luna agreed easily. But Scootaloo, this is no longer a question of punishment for him, but a means of which we may find him. It is nothing that he would feel any guilt or ill will towards you for telling us. Despite the kind, if cryptic words from the dark alicorn, Scootaloo continued to avoid Luna's gaze.
But if I did tell you, then I wouldn't be loyal to him.
That's when her eyes fell on Dash.
Being loyal to my friends is the most important thing to me.
If the situation were any less serious, Rainbow would have been able to wear a confident smirk, declare the statement fact, then fly off into the sunset with the filly on her back. Now, however, she knew that playing the idol was not something that would benefit anyone, so instead, she let a comforting smile push itself over her lips as she trotted back towards the younger Pegasus.
You got the right idea, Scoots,
she began, settling down on all fours by the filly's side. Scootaloo looked at her wide eyes with an equally wide smile.
But you're missing something important.
Those words were all it took for the smile to fall.
What's that? Did I do something wrong? I swear I didn't tell any pony. I didn't even need to pinky promise.
Dash suppressed the rumble in her chest as she answered the worried Pegasus foal.
It's nothing bad, really. In fact, I'm sure Pip would be extremely proud to hear you keep his secret so well. Really?
The filly asked nervously, lips between her teeth as she gnawed at the thin layer of skin. Dash let herself enjoy a small laugh before she continued.
Seriously. Yeah, but...
She raised a hoof to Scootaloo.
He wanted you to make that promise, so he wouldn't get in trouble, right?
The filly shifted her hooves over one another at the question. Dash allowed a knowing smile, one that usually rested on Twilight's lips, to settle over her own.
You did a good job of doing that, but now that he is in trouble, telling us what he told you will help us find him. Do you think you can do that?
In spite of the comforting words from our mentor, Scootaloo continued to fiddle with her hooves and legs, even beginning to twist her tail beneath them. Her gaze never once landed on Dash.
It isn't what he told me.
The young filly began carefully, eyes still transfixed with the ground beneath her.
It's what he showed me.
That earned a questioning gaze from the mares around her. Dash let her wing move up and down the filly's back, comforting her as much as she could. Scootaloo smiled bashfully at her gesture.
So?
The prismatic Pegasus began carefully.
Did he have a treasure map or something else?
Her voice was leading to what she hoped would be the promise Scootaloo was keeping so aggravatingly well. The filly shook her head lightly, letting her head pull back between her shoulders.
Pip said that he wanted to go on an adventure, and he knew the spot to try. But he said he needed an adventuring partner to go with him.
Princess Luna leaned in close to the orange filly, Dash moving away gently to allow the monarch room. With a kind smile, she spoke to Scootaloo again. And where did Pip Squeak ask for you to join him? The Pegasus foal took in a deep breath of air, looking for all the world as if she was about to confess to a crime. Swallowing on nothing, the filly answered her.
The Everfree Forest. So Pip brought you this deep into the woods?
Dash asked the filly in front of her. Said Pegasus was looking left and right at the trees that moved past them, looking over them for familiar signs that no other member of the party would be able to recognize. She turned her attention to the prismatic mare briefly, with a wide smile before answering.
Yeah,
Scootaloo spoke.
He said that being an adventurer meant being brave,
but that it was also meant keeping someone close in case things went wrong. Smart colt. Twilight praised lightly behind the two. She caught the image of Luna nodding her head in agreement, the ghost of a smile tracing her lips.
That's what I thought, and I mean, heck, I thought I could earn my Everfree Explorer cutie mark, but it didn't work.
The fall in the Pegasus's voice wasn't anything Dash could have missed. With her trademark smirk, the older Pegasus trotted to the filly's side, wrapping a wing around the orange coat.
Ah, cheer up, Scoots.
She spoke lightly to the younger Pegasus, who looked up at her with that same praising expression.
That's nothing to be worried about. You got the most awesome Pegasus in Equestria teaching you the tips and tricks to flying now. I bet you'll get your cutie mark in no time flat.
Those were complimented by a wide smile. She works well with Scootaloo. Princess Luna commented lightly to the unicorn next to her. Twilight nodded in agreement, never letting her lavender eyes move from the pair. The larger Pegasus walked in tune with the younger, wrapping a wing around the filly. Even to her, not wrapped in its embrace, the gesture looked warm, comforting, protective, maybe even a bit possessive. She still couldn't name a reason why she wouldn't want to be in Scootaloo's physical position right now. Yeah, Dash is good with foals. Twilight spoke to the dark alicorn. She has a full fan club back in Ponyville, but that went to her head for a short while. The unicorn felt the incredulous look from Luna before she turned to see it. Don't get me wrong, Rainbow is the most loyal pony I know. Always will be, but she can easily think highly of herself. Yes, Luna admitted, or so the exchange from prior had shown. Her sapphire eyes watched the two ahead of her, observing as the younger of the Pegasi pair leaned into the elder, carefully relishing the touch of the other. It brought a smile to her features. She does deserve a fair share of the praise she receives. Now it was Twilight's turn to smile. That's true, and most ponies forget that. A curious look from the princess as they continued to trot was all the cue Twilight needed to continue. Dash comes off as strong to a lot of ponies. It's hard for her to be patient around a lot of things. For her, it's easier just to rush in and fix whatever was going wrong, no matter how complicated it might be. But more than once, that's what's often saved us. If I had stopped to think about a lot of things, there wouldn't have been any time to do them. The smile on her features grew as she ducked under a branch. Luna trotted around the tree, eyes never leaving her. So it's a fair assumption that you say you admire Rainbow Dash? The bewildered look from Twilight was clear. Of all the questions she had been expecting, that was not one of them. The unicorn gave a glance towards Dash and Scootaloo, seeing them still just as many hooves forwards as before, moving in and out of the paths of the trees, and still Luna's questioning gaze never left her. Well, Twilight rolled off cautiously. I guess admiration is possibly what I feel for her, but it is something a bit deeper. She kept her eyes from falling to the ground by staring ahead. If there was one thing Twilight did not want to see, it was Luna's curious eyes. Deeper than admiration? Luna's voice carried all the curiosity her face could offer. Why, Twilight Sparkle, to me it sounds as if you care for her beyond the bonds of friendship. The unicorn kicked a stone in her path. Luna did not miss that. She leaned in closer to the lavender mare, eyes watching her sister's student carefully. Do you? There was no need to question the meaning behind those words. Twilight bit her lip for another time, sure now that it must have been bruised beneath her lavender coat with the amount of force she had put on it. She screwed her eyes shut for a moment before opening them, afraid that she would trip over a tree root with her shut eyes in the dense forest. It did, however, give her an excuse to watch the ground, overlooking towards the questioning alicorn. The idea that Twilight was being drilled on was nothing she hadn't already asked herself 100 times before. Judging her feelings for her friends was nothing too new. It was how she was able to tell that they were friends at all. It's hard to call someone dear or trustworthy if you don't think of them any differently than any random pony on the street. But what happened when that became more? What happened when it was no longer realizing you cared for them, but wanting them to care for you? It was a series of questions that had filled her mind for some time. She couldn't find a single source material that gave any clues as to how to deal with the situation, and it wasn't dire enough that she felt the need to ask Celestia for help. No, it was just a problem, an equationless and factless issue that she had to work out. But for now, Princess Luna needed an answer. Filling her lungs with air, Twilight spoke.
This is it.
Both Unicorn and Alicorn turned their attentions forward, looking now into a clearing more open than any other section of the forest before it. There were no tree roots pulling at the ground, no rocks jutting from the soil. Aside from the grass, the area of the forest was completely clear.
Gotta say, I didn't expect this,
Dash admitted as she trotted forwards, eyes looking around her as she did so. Scootaloo followed close behind her.
Nothing awesome, but compared to the rest of the Everfree, just thought it would be, I don't know, creepier, I guess.
Be thankful your wishes were unanswered, Rainbow Dash. Luna spoke as she entered the clearing with the Pegasi pair. Wishing for horror only invites harm. Dash put a hoof behind her mane, scratching at her rainbow hair. Scootaloo, Luna addressed the orange foal. Can you show me in what area Pipsqueak explored? I theorize that you and he separated at one point, else you would also be ill. There was a flash of recognition in the filly's eyes as the words washed over her.
Yeah, it was a little after we got in here. He said he wanted to be like Daring Do and explore an area alone. Something about coming back with a lost treasure.
It took Dash a great deal of control not to let out a bark of laughter. Twilight, however, let out a breath of air as the filly led the alicorn away. She shook her head, collected her thoughts, and trotted into the clearing as well. Dash flew up next to her quickly.
Scoots has a good head on her shoulders. I don't think I would be able to find this place twice unless I was in the sky,
Dash admitted to the unicorn beside her, trotting behind the dark monarch and filly Pegasus. Don't short-sell yourself, Rainbow, Twilight argued back. I'm sure if one of us had gone missing, you would have found this place easily enough. Dash gave the unicorn her trademark grin.
Yeah, you're probably right. There's no way I'd let anything happen to you.
Twilight was ready to respond, but found herself unable to. A blue wing, strong and well-shaped, wrapped around her midsection, pulling her against the Pegasus's side. A gasp of surprise left her lips at the sensation, but no part of her mind or body argued with the feeling.
So, what did Luna ask you about?
Rainbow whispered quietly to Twilight.
I heard everything till she asked about us.
It was hard for Twilight to state the reason for her inability to breathe. The question that caught her off guard, or the close contact with the Pegasus? She landed on neither, deciding that a far more logical reason would be a spasm in her diaphragm. Hopefully it would pass soon enough so that she wouldn't suffocate. Twilight wheezed out through her barely audible voice. It only forced Dash to lean in closer to her.
Sorry, didn't hear that,
Dash asked the unicorn. Twilight tried to scream, but found the ability to sigh far more rewarding.
She asked me about our relationship?
She was about to glance over and see confusion written in the Pegasus's eyes. She was curious about how I view you as a friend, and whether or not that was all. A blanket of silence was hung over the two of them. Really, all Twilight could hear was the shuffling of hooves from Luna and Scootaloo. She let herself look over at them, watching as Scootaloo talked to Princess Luna like an old friend, and the Dark Monarch smiling down at her, nodding with every word. She only wished she could hear what they were saying. That was about when she let her eyes turn back to the Pegasus beside her. Breathing became difficult again. Dash was staring deeply at Twilight. Her eyes were half-lidded, lips parted just enough to see inside her maw. Her breath came out in small pants, tickling the ends of Twilight's senses as the air passed over her. The breaths themselves felt puffy and warm. She felt unnaturally hot and stuffy. Dash? She stuttered out words towards the Pegasus, but Rainbow paid her no mind, still peering deeply at her. Slowly, her head began to move forward, inching closer and closer to the stunned unicorn. Twilight found her eyes growing wider with every amount of space that was filled between her and the Pegasus. Her legs refused to move, neck still as stone, and heart racing faster than she dared even Dash to move. Twilight shut her eyes, clenching them tightly as she prepared for whatever the Pegasus had in mind. Would it be warm? Gentle? Would she be pushed out to the meadow ground? Oh, Celestia! Luna! Luna was right there! And Scootaloo! What was Dash thinking? Did she want to do this now? Why couldn't Twilight come up with a single reason to try and stop her?
Yo, Twilight!
The voice wasn't far from in front of her, or even close to her. Reluctantly, Twilight opened her eyes, letting the blurry world clear as her lids slowly opened. Dash was nowhere in sight. She saw Scootaloo pointing and waving at the clearing's end. Luna listening intently to her as she spoke, but Rainbow wasn't there. Twilight forced her stiff neck to twist, looking around her for the prismatic Pegasus. She saw Dash no less than 40 hooves away, waving her over towards her. Whatever Twilight felt, words couldn't describe.
Come on, Twilight, I think I found something.
The unicorn let out a curt sigh as she turned away from the Pegasus, donning a neutral gaze with her eyes before turning back. She trotted easily over to Rainbow's side, following the Pegasus's gaze. Her lavender eyes found an object hung on a tree. There was nothing spectacular about the tree. It had as many leaves as any other. No limbs broken, no perfectly symmetrical parts or orientation. No animals were housed within or around it. No glaring deformities or desirable traits. It was a perfectly average tree. The note attached to it was not. And that's the end of the chapter. The picture of the note, by the way, is of the Slenderman, and he's surrounded with the words no, 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 repeated over and over again.